You want to use your stamp too?
Let me give it to him.
Actually, I just gotta open this flash drive.
Good.
I'm sorry, this thing's not open for some reason. Sorry, which day was called? Round 3 Penn?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, yeah.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Yeah, I'm good.
What's that queer? I affirm. Part 1 is the framework. Two types of reasoning: desire-based and value-based. Desire-based contains a moral set of rules, same set of desires, whereas value-based contains actions right and wrong based state affairs given back to reason, income for a particular person. Only value-based gives a reason to act. Parfit. Desire gives reason. Desires can cause us to save acting for our own sake, to waste our lives trying to achieve the worth same. None gives desires reason. Reason provide a future what we want, makes ourselves worth achieving. Desire-based theories make the mistake by confusing many these desires and many these liking and disliking. Something is good because we want it. Perfect too. Most of we want to most of we want to avoid future pain. We cannot dislike future pain. We dislike something about the future. There's more differences between state affairs. Many these likings and disliking something. We desires to confer value when we are in great pain. Make a consideration of what is bad. Part present desire, not looking at having certain sensation. What we dislike desires objectively good or bad. Nothing is good because we want this. A value-based theory justifies rule consequence reflected 1. No one will be able to present a value-based reason to reject optimum principle Ross. Principles in universal acceptance everyone will precisely look universal acceptance and consequences. In partial point of view, this not rule consequence principles. Principles make the good to go best. How we look at certain principles of sufficient reason for rule consequences rightly look at certain rule consequence principles. Let's say there's rule consequentialism. It's defined as principles in universal acceptance with best consequences from a partial point of view. Part 2 is offense. Inherency. Federal laws not treat alcohol abuse the same way as other drugs. There's no overarching theory was considered an alcohol abuser. Webster verdict 1. Federal laws prohibits transfer of firearms from illicit drugs, but despite the evidence of alcohol abuse, there's no federal law that bar them from acquiring firearms. Only 16 states have firearm prohibition for persons with alcohol. The definition does not require objective criteria for law enforcement or prohibition of pure justice. Report denials firearm for due to alcohol-related offenses. Thus the plan. Resolved. The United States federal government, in coordination with the 50 states, will ban the possession of handguns for anyone convicted of multiple alcohol violations within a 5-year span. The system is currently used in Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C. and has a tremendous amount of support. Whitman 14.1. A history of alcohol abuse is proposed for grounds for firearm prohibition. There is conclusive evidence linking alcohol abuse to violence against oneself and one another. How we look at one-third of homicide, suicide, positive risk of alcohol, DUI, offenders have found a high prevalence of alcohol dependence on the criminal activity, mental health, psychiatry, etymology, and law enforcement. Endorses a 5-year prohibition of firearm possession for people who have convicted related alcohol offenses. A survey of firearm retail strong support for policy, 70.7% in favor of multiple DUI convictions. Advantage was suicide and homicide. There's a problem. There's a proven correlation between risky alcohol and risky gun use. Owners who abuse alcohol are more likely to be dangerous. Women 11.2. Compare response to firearms owners are more likely to abuse alcohol and to drink and drive. Firearms owners who engage in firearm-related risk behavior, such as the highest related risk behavior between alcohol owners who do not engage in firearm-related risk behavior, such as attending a safety workshop. There's less likely to drink. The findings, the argument against other earlier findings, which found that the firearm was more common among people who histories of alcohol abuse. Alcohol abusers who own guns are twice as likely to commit homicide and suicide, or Veridol. Analysis of specific computer estimated data associated with alcohol, homicide, and suicide affecting the relationship with substances that included the presence of gun in home, 1860 homicide, 803 suicide. The household interviewed not to for age, sex, race, or victim or method of death. Use of alcohol associated with twofold increase in homicide within all age groups examined, and factors associated with elevation of risk of death, homicide associated with this, risk of suicide, drinking alcohol associated with twofold increase in risk of suicide. The plan solves, again summarized Whitman. Federal state policy largely effective restricting gun owners for people who misuse alcohol. 37 states have some restriction requiring firearms to those who have the objective criteria of policies not enforceable for violence or definition policies to restrict firearms for persons who are both the risk factors not shown to be effective. California prohibiting persons convicted of violent misdemeanors to 10 years following conviction reduce the rate of firearm offense to the evidence shows that properly crafted policies of firearm-related violence advantages IPV. An alcohol drinker makes intimate partner violence 8 times more likely. Sharps et al. The versatile logistic regression between the performance estimated association between alcohol and risk of intimate partner violence, controlling age, sex, race, education, employment status of women. Their intimate partners indicate that having a partner who is a drinker may increase more than 8-fold. Partners who have associated with a drinker more than twice as partners who do not have a drinking problem. Handguns are abused weapon of choice and almost never used for self-defense. Sorensen. Among 36.7 who report firearm been used against the victimization of handguns report twice as often as log, but women who have victimized firearm used against the victimization report 8.1 to 4.6 types of weapon used against them respectively. 15 women who had firearm self-defense, 5 used them aggressively against a partner. Part 3 is reflective equilibrium. Except for reflective equilibrium perspective on framework means we attempt to find the best theory coercion moral of judgment of a certain principle, hypermediated principles, aka general justification to defeat the purpose of moral discussion. Scanlon. When debate people say you can't come up with arguments of how some accept the pain contradictions, questions of judgment, how we look decide who's trying to achieve another aim principles to calculate the condition of judgment principles and will not accept them. Thus reason for the argument not sufficient to direct moral consideration. Reflective people requires a negative to give specific counterexamples to reasons to reject a theory examples, way the discord of counterexamples, and then defeat reflective equilibrium negatives provide a counter methodology, qualify more source of how we look to generate more judgments. Skip the rest. Rule consequential coherence with judgments and reflective equilibrium of Hooker. Rule consequential says the rules are based on how we look impartially calculate, but this will favor certain rules partially limits between Luke consequential impartial view and selective between impartially possible and look at breaking these promises. Part 4 is the underview. Presume after counterbalance size to negative 1% ability to terror that to AC for theoretical on the theory based by all substance fairness of voter precedes substance served not for the better base skills not the unfair advantage. And 2, Merriam-Webster provides in is used to indicate something is part of something. The word advantage resolution means category is not followed by categorically. Meaning the plan is linguistically topical. Alcohol's hard question United States for structure prefers counter-derivation calculate prior AC in terms of more likely best rule for babies subjects to for more speeches and evaluate T through reasonability bright line for reasonable linguistic affirmation resolution phrases solvency counter solvency F. In other words, the plan affirms the topic is debatable. One can be interpreted less bears went off minuscule response infinite possible definition of perfectly 50-50 incentivize neg who as much as possible. T is a game over issue and don't treat reasonability any differently than RBI. But giving an RBI independently of reasonability if I'm being reasonable, this means the same fairness claim as the 1AR, but the fairness is time crush with NC, which means I have far less time to a unique offense and I'd always make behind a way debate respond in 6 minutes, respond 6-minute scripts. Also, all net counterparts must be competitive with the firm's advocacy through mutual exclusivity, not net benefits. Mutual exclusivity must not merely follow from net benefits first ground. Merely net benefits are counterprinciple in their ground because they give them access to the infinite variety of policy options. There's incompatible with the average AC. The problem I can't anticipate every single policy option or spec those ideas to how with a control alternative. And the app has leveraged the AC against the counterplan, which means that the app is considered incompatible ground. And Hito looks to argue to win. And now just like go back up to the reasonability spike. Just a few more reasons why we look for reasonability. The resolution is inherently vague, so different types of word in the real world. So no way we know which attribute to choose because of vagueness. With certain norms, how we look at certain arguments. Next, I can't read T against them, so to the neg, so it's competing interpretation T, which means the neg doesn't have to exist for me. The app is an reciprocal advantage. Also, the neg is to choose or advocacy to AC, adapt to app interpret, so T doesn't give me the opportunity to do so.
Alright, everyone ready for 6?
Yep.
Okay, starting now. Was that last argument extempt?
What argument?
The last argument you made on in the underview.
No, they were. I just went back up to the other spike. I skipped them and then went back.
Oh, okay, wait. So
the second and third point.
What spikes did you read?
I read everything except the A point here and the C point
Actually,
there.
do you mind if we pause CX for this? Okay, like could you just delete what you didn't read?
The A and the C point. Everything else is
here?
read. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and then the reflective equilibrium I skipped a little bit.
Okay.
From further.
You skip A and C and evaluate T through reasonability.
Wait, no, I did read that.
Wait.
Evaluate T through reasonability. I did read that. The bright line.
Which ones did you not read then?
The A and C. That's it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So you did. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
in that. That's what you said. Yeah.
So
I did. Yeah. And then from further down to the tag of the hooker card. I didn't read.
Okay. All right.
So that's everything else.
Yeah, sure. Resuming. Starting. Okay. So let's talk about all net counterplans must be competitive with the app's advocacy. Okay. So what does it mean for? Oh wait, through net benefit.
I mean through mutual exclusivity.
Yeah. Okay. So what would give me an example of a net counterplan that's mutually exclusive with the app? Actually, is there?
What do you mean? That we
could you show me the counter solvency advocate to this app? It's
yeah.
like, where's it from?
I'll get it for you.
Okay. It's not the.
Here it is.
All right.
It's from the Huffington Post.
Okay, so prohibition in whatever form does not work. It didn't work for alcohol. It will not work for guns either.
Yep.
How is this a counter solvency advocate to your app?
It's
not.
It's
Does
a
your app
reason
defend
why.
prohibition?
What?
Does your app defend prohibition?
Oh, handguns, yes.
But only for a specific segment of the population, right?
For alcohol abusers, right?
Yes. How's that prohibition?
I just told you how it's a prohibition, Wesley.
Okay, so prohibition just in this context, it seems to be talking about alcohol prohibition, which banned alcohol for all people.
Yes, but then it says it will not work for guns either.
Okay, and it applies that from the context of alcohol, where it was talking about all people, correct?
What?
It's applied from the context of alcohol prohibition, which was general to all people, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you
But
apply it in this context,
it's a reason why the gun prohibition.
it's a reason why gun prohibition will not work.
Yeah.
Gun prohibition for all people, such as in the instance of alcohol prohibition, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Dude, just because I
What's
specify, dude, it's a reason why no prohibition.
What's
like,
your- wait,
prohibition
sorry.
on a whole does not work.
So the bright line for a reasonable app is a linguistic affirmation of the resolutional
Yeah,
phrase.
which I
So
proved
let's
for
say
the
let's
first
say let's say the resolutional let's say the resolution is like governments shouldn't go to war, and you interpret war as like the card game. That's a textual interpretation of the word like the word war. Is that okay under your interpretation of reasonability?
Wait, I don't understand.
Okay, the resolution is like states shouldn't go to war,
Okay.
and like I say, oh, they shouldn't have the card game war. And like, is that a textual interpretation that meets your reasonability bright line?
I mean, I think that would probably not like that definition seems pretty BS, right? In comparison to
Okay,
that
so
resolution.
in that case, then it's a question of how BS the definition is. In which
No,
case,
I
you
wouldn't
just
say,
not
no, I
even
wouldn't,
the
I
definition,
wouldn't, no, I wouldn't say that. I'd say at the point where I have in linguistically for affirmation of the resolution, which the first spike says I do, that's a reason to affirm.
Okay,
if you
so
want to interpret that as textuality, sure, you can make those arguments in the next speech. I'm not going to concede that.
wait,
right
what's
now.
the difference between linguistic affirmation and textuality?
I don't make a distinction in the app.
Wait, what? But you just said.
I don't know.
CX.
What's your definition of textuality? I said I'm not making that argument now. If you want to make that argument later, sure.
Okay, I want you to answer my question. Would that be topical on that topic?
What?
That you like read a case about how we banned the card game war.
I don't know.
What do you mean? Like I'm asking you about what your model for debate would entail.
I would have to see the different definitions of the word war.
All right. Prep time starting. Prep time starting.
According to me, War is a beloved board game of my childhood. It's not a card game.
It is also a card game about the
The
maximization.
Egyptian War, but it's...
Why would there's different? Exactly. So there's multiple different games that we could ban.
Alright, okay, I didn't mean for this to part of the debate.
What's these factually
Heard
incoherent?
you now.
No, I just I have to defend it.
And you read a fairness voter in the F, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should we read an education voter? So you only read the argument that competing interests lets debaters win on minuscule risk of offense, right? And you only read like don't treat reasonability as any different than an RDI debate.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, so sorry.
No, I read two
got
lines
it.
under that.
I got it.
Yeah. But I read those at the end, so the judges probably have those float at the bottom of the underview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, you read the stuff like the resolution is inherently vague and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I can't read Alright, 50 seconds left. The order's gonna be 3 off AC. And on the F, we'll start on the underview.
Flash it to me, please.
Yeah.
3 off the AC?
Yeah. Okay, it's Penn RR round 3. I might extend some marks like after the T voter, okay? But I'm not gonna extend them anywhere else. This is. Do you mind? Yeah, thank you. For this.
What?
It's all enough for this. No, it's all good. Right, let me know when you're ready.
What's the doc called?
Penn RR round 3. Let me know when everyone's ready. You good?
1 second.
3 off in case, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
ready.
Okay. response to top quality. A is the interpretation. Google defines ban as legally prohibited. A prohibition is the for control. The affirms defend a blanket ban. In case 82, the American Society of Criminology is
Clear.
control for a prohibition. Characterized an extreme proposal. Not only is prohibition legally very different, but prohibition advocacy is the primary impediment to effective control. To clarify, you can replay this. You can talk about enforcement mechanisms, for example, but whatever you defend, it has to actually be a ban. That is for all people. Courts contrast handgun bans, which are total with gun restrictions, like Scalia. DC law ban handgun possession, making it a crime to carry, prohibiting registration of handguns. No person may carry an unlicensed handgun. The DC Circuit reversed this total ban. Peacelation. One is for the AC plan text. The activist limiting access to handguns for the section of the population, which is not a ban but gun control. 2 cross-examination clarifies. He specifies. CC standards. 1. Ground. LI specification explosive topic. Are functionally infinite. Combination plans to ban handguns. People to ban them. Form to text to ban. I have no way to prep. Even if literature exists, I cannot be able to engage anything. You also dynamic core generic net ground. For example, because rather than getting rid of all handguns, you just regulate them. I lose access to constitutionality, MCs, and disadvantages. Generic net ground is key, specifically in these instances. Afflex means negative something to rely on, even against what's creative unbroken you can ask. Worst of all, you can invent truly true affirmatives, such as banning handguns for all serial killers. Infinitely abusive, and I cannot possibly contest that claim. 2. Textuality. Handguns is a generic noun phrase. To go off 15. Private ownership of handguns seems to be generic, narrowing the topic down to just what people on the FBI terror watch list or demented as violence, misdemeanors as a level specification that does not prove the topic. Jurisdiction is pretty much a reason to reject the absence of the resolution is how we value the better debate. Given the case about microbiology, is educational without the reason it indicates good debating. Also, takes the resolution based on our parts, so key friends in the clash. 3. Field context. I read evidence from a criminological conference and Supreme Court justice, and specifically prohibition versus control and restrictions. Key friends listen to my preparation based on topic literature. Also filters your educational benefits and discussions useless if it's not grounded in coherent understanding how terms and policies are actually utilized in the real world. 4. Topic version of the app. Just spent the whole resolution. You can still read your advantages, so there's no net benefit to specifications and that discussion is included anyway. Diesel voters. Fairness voting is the ballot. Those who vote for the benefit actually cross my fairness voter out of the app. Education voting because school fund debaters and educational needs corrects. Use competing interpretations value theory debate. 1. Top values by understanding the resolution. Otherwise, no way to understand how our platform applies round and round. 2. Reasonable is arbitrary dimension. 3. No strategic prevents skews on broader scope which outweighs. Drop leader on T. 1. You have no obviously, so there's literally no way for you to win. At worst, between X is the result of these further terms so you have a proactive contextual burden. Also outweighs the theoretical presumptive arguments. Theoretical presumptive arguments are based on a skew to the round, but the problem is that this skew doesn't even come into account because I'm saying that objectively, based on my textual burden, I'm better meeting it. Secondly, any terms you make are not unique since you don't have an avenue to rely on separate. And thirdly, this shall needs drop the reader to since redefine the affidavit to hold whole rights means there's no punishment since you're often entirely preserved. No already has a T since it's illogical to vote for you just because you know what the resolution means and that's your job. Second off. Consequential topic committed to the view that any action is strictly valid, even oppression, because moral values is solely premise on results. And so, if you are consequential of the question, what is right in such subject or circumstances, a stupid one. The consequences of putting on which to say this would be reversible. This topic is by his own hypothesis, the consequences that are designed, and he has no business to pretend that he can lay down what possible twists a man could give doing this or that. The most he can say is a man must not bring about this or that. Walsh explains it in the context of util. When the greatest topic is achieved, the consent of the few. If a large group were to enslave a small group, the large group would gain. If we were to follow the util calculus, the suffering of few would be outweighed. Hence, utilitarians would be seen in endorse slavery when it produces a great total amount of happiness. Slavery and depression are wrong because of the amount of pleasure accumulated. Individuals who experience oppression cannot take on the view that is personal. Questioning of the balance of their oppression, so their voice is Tihan. They say this is not a space where everyone can. They say this is a space where everyone is safe to question us up to try new perspectives. That's not true for everyone. When we allow arguments that question the wrongness, racism, sexism, etc., we make debate unsafe for people face the actual effects of the aforementioned things. So I make it so that saying these things that make debate unsafe has repercussions. We care at all about the people involved in debate, about the safety and well-being of competitors that don't follow these arguments. Thus, the alternatives reject consequential. The consequential justifies the evil, obligates oppression if its impacts lead to something good down the line, which is always inclusionary towards marginalized groups. Judges either punish the discourse for the loss, or also defend it for the top trade-off. Third off. Counterplan. A is the text. The U.S. ought to mandate the U.S. ought to mandate that the people covered by his plan text, the violators of the alcohol laws, join Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step rehab center program, CARIS. Right now, of 17.6 million alcohol abusers, only 7.9% have received treatment. We must change how we treat substance use disorders to effect a larger change toward a healthy saver of America. It is successful. HBFF writes, a random survey of 6,500 AA members revealed the average time sobriety of members is more than 5 years. These accomplishments, 1 evidence is the case, turns out reason the Counterplan law is better. 2, political expediency. Paul speaks won't have the capital to pass 2 things if they're viewed as redundant, so it's not real world educational to look at to the permutation. C solvency, since we prevent alcoholism, we also prevent alcoholism, triggering gun violence and suicide. D is the net benefit is deontology. Use practical reason. Only practical identity can ground the official value of human action. Course guard. The mind forces have a concept of ourselves. The principle by which you determine actions, what is expressive, how an agent thinks of herself will determine the law. What is the identity? It's not theoretical as a scientific fact, but it's a description on which you value yourself. And your actions, identities give rise to obligations. And this means we look to the conclusions of universality because agents must act by universal rules, or else they will view themselves they won't view themselves as cause their actions, which undermines practical agency. Course guard 2. A rational goal is aware of self cause. Suppose you desire A and B of some principles of A, so you choose A. You regard choice regard yours because you are personal choice and yourself. The only alternative is regarding personal choice as something that you but they're not cause the action. And thus freedom is important because when you value freedom, you are not useful willing your own freedom while by limiting someone else's. The counterplan is consistent with the ontology. 1. Rehabilitation is a health service which is redistribution of wealth, which is consistent with property rights because it's already taxed and it's no longer property that you own. Secondly, helping someone pass their alcoholism helps them regain their rational capacities. And the affirmative violates the ontology because right to freedom entails people own property with which to be used for their own ends, which you violate. Humor. The number of gun owners 2,000 times greater than the firearms related deaths. The gun enthusiasts prima facie already significant. A prohibition on ownership would constitute a major interference with plans for their own lives. Now let's go to AC. Okay, underview, starting there. Let's go to definition of in. One, this definition is really bad. If I say the pen is in a basket, I don't mean the pen is like literally just included in the basket. I mean that the pen is contained within the basket. But the problem is that this is only one particular use of the word. But we're saying that in the United States we have to have a ban that is saying that we're going to take some action in here. Secondly, this is not having the context. My arguments are always going to be preferable because they're talking about legal context, specifically the resolution and policy making. Then you say temporality is always better. However, firstly, there's only one more speech which is scrutinized, so it's a very marginal benefit to that. And secondly, I'm showing that your definition is not showing up to standing up to that scrutiny in the first place. Because all my standards on topicality show that you are not allowed to read this definition. So you're not standing up to scrutiny in the first place. Then on culpability, firstly, there's infinite abuse if you're allowed to just read any definition, so it's also outweighing any culpability argument you have because you can literally have any definition you want, and you can always do say that just to affirm. Secondly, I disclose the T interpretation, which means that I'm meeting the culpability standard because you could have just met a part of the route. Now let's go to your arguments of reasonability. First of all, you don't even meet your reasonability standard because your counter-solvency advocate is just talking about how we should not have prohibition in general, but the problem is that's not a counter-solvency advocate to your plan. That is basically like saying skep is a counter-solvency advocate to your plan. Just because skepticism denies that we have to do your plan doesn't mean that skep is a counter-solvency advocate. You need a counter-solvency advocate specifically saying we shouldn't do your plan specifically, and prohibition is not the plan specifically because prohibition is talking about all people in general in the context of alcohol prohibition. So you don't even meet the run line of reasonability. You must default to competing interpretations. But now let's go to reason for reasonable. You say it's a minuscule abuse allows people to win on anything under competing interpretations. However, firstly, just ask Bob. We could use epistemic modesty between pre-fiat layers and post-fiat layers, which solves back to this anyways. Secondly, the resolution is not infinite. There's only a finite number of definitions. Thirdly, I do not have the counter-interpretation. The counter-interpretation is pretty unreasonable here, which means that it should beg the question of whether or not there's actually going to be binary counter-interpretation. Then you say it's actually, sorry, let's go back to down to your shell about counterplans before I answer the other arguments. Firstly, on ground, this doesn't make any sense because of the fact that it's specifically against reacting to the abuse here. Because if I'm showing abuse on top of that's the reason why you should grant my counterplay because it's the only way I could possibly engage with this type of affirmative. Secondly, the ground argument doesn't make any sense because people read counterplays that are mutually exclusive all the time. Sometimes the most stock arguments are the most intuitive objections are the ones that are in the literature are the ones that are not mutually exclusive in the first place. It does not deny you ground in the first place because you could access permutation. If your affirmative was good in the first place, you would have been able to access that. Furthermore, particularly solved by the fact that I have solvency advocate, it's in the literature, so you're not getting access to particularly offense. But now let's go back to your vagueness argument. It's not vague because it's clarified. I have real world definitions, and then you say there's going to be an infinite. Actually, yeah. All right. Ready for CS.
Cool. Alright, ready? Starting on the counterplan?
Yep.
Okay, so the counterplan is that we coerce people who are alcoholics to go to rehabilitation centers.
What's
that seems to be pretty bad under Kantianism, right?
No, there's two reasons why it's consistent with Kantianism.
That you read. Yeah,
Yes.
but I want you to answer that question. It seems bad if we coerce people to go to rehab centers, right?
No, because I have two reasons that is not the case. What is included in the scope of the affirmative, right? Just
Okay.
people who have violated
Well, this
the
is
law.
my cross-sexuality. I'm not going to answer your questions.
Alright.
Okay, so let's talk about this K of util, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like all the links are just about util generically, except the first one that talks about consequentialism.
It's consequentialism and like
Okay.
Walsh explaining the context.
Okay, so what does the Anscombe card say?
Anscombe says that if you're a consequentialist, you can only say like what is right in particular circumstances, rather than saying that like generically only like one thing is.
Wait, but that doesn't seem to be oppressive. How is that oppressive?
It's oppressive if we can say like, oh, torture is justified in the instance that like the benefits.
Wait, but where does Anscombe say this is a form of oppression? It just says this just seems like a
It's
generic
not about-
reason
it's not
why
about-
rule
it's not about-
consequentialism is bad,
It's
right?
not about what is a form of oppression. It's about what justifies.
Wesley, this
oppression.
Anscombe card just seems to be like an answer to rule consequentialism, saying that we can't look to things
Is that a
that are being
question or a
intrinsically
statement?
good.
It's your CS,
Yeah, but
right?
I'm asking, where does it prove that how does that link to the T-hand card? The T-hand card said that people can't say racist comments in round, right?
I don't think that's
Or
what
if
T-hand
people
says.
say things that make people uncomfortable in round, that's bad.
I also don't think that was T-hand says.
Then what does T-hand say?
T-hand says we should punish arguments with racist or sexist components.
Okay, so how does the Anscombe card prove rule consequentialism is sexist or racist?
Because so let's say with the example of torture, you can torture someone if that will lead to like a greater benefit. For
Did you
example,
know Kant was a racist?
First of all, I don't read Kantian like cards from Kant. So even if Kant.
Okay, but it was his theory, right? I don't read like util arguments from slave owners.
Tian doesn't seem to be justifying like using author indicts. Tian seems to be talking about the content of the argument. Like when we allow arguments that question the wrongness of racism.
That's fine.
Not like when we allow
So point
arguments
out-
from
so
authors.
point out-
Also, I don't have
Okay,
an author in the first
But
place.
you don't point out like a specific argument out of the AF that's specifically oppressive. You just say
it's consequentialist.
Okay.
That's the last.
Okay, let's go to the shell. Okay, so your interpretation is the definition of prohibition, right?
What about?
Or the definition of a ban.
It's the definition of a ban. Yeah.
Okay,
and
which
then
is to legally prohibit.
And then Cates and Scalia.
So why does to
elaborate.
legally prohibit something mean that we have to prohibit it generally?
Okay, Cates explains how prohibition is distinct from control. the American Society of Criminology, distinguishing control from prohibition.
But that's not the definition. But that assumes that that's a definition of the resolution. That's not an analysis of the resolution, right? Your definition is
it's an analysis of the difference between prohibition and control.
Do you read the Scalia card?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what does that say?
So Scalia explains how a ban, like the DC ban, says that no person may carry an unlicensed handgun.
Okay, that's cool. Starting my prep time now. What comes first, K or theory?
What do you want me to say comes first?
I want you to say that the K comes first.
K comes first.
Alrighty. Okay, 115. Under view of the F, then it will be arguments, then it's going to be the shell, then it is going to go to the K of util, and then back to the shell. The first part of the shell, the first time on the shell, is just going to be on the voter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll signpost. I promise.
K back to the K.
Yep.
It starts with the F.
No. It's under view of the app, then it is going to go interaction.
Back to the K.
I might change. This is what I want to do. Sorry. It's going to be starting on the underview of the app. Then it's going to be like extensions of substance. Then it's going to go to util K, and then it'll just be T. So I won't go back to T. I'll just only T.
T.
Yep.
Okay.
But underview, then substance.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
I'm ready.
Wesley's not doing enough work on the third spot. You said all-night conference must be competitive with the affirms absolute mutual exclusivity. You do not have time to expound the predictability argument. The argument that's only predictable ground and also answering the true alternatives. The app can leverage the AC against the counterplan. The app C is consistent with the AC. You live by which you didn't. You read a counterplan. You read a counterplan that's competitive through net benefits, but also goes to his arguments against ground. The problem with his arguments against ground, they were pretty much incoherent. His first argument is that grounds of abuse, we have certain abuse sense in the topic of interpret. No, I don't know. It's the infinite possible counterpoints. You can say they can go to rehabilitation, so you can say they can automatically go to jail. I don't know, especially when you're corrupt as advocacy. No, it's not about just being the topic of the argument is about you, me having the ability to respond to that in the first place. Which means even if it's topic of you still violate the ground arguments. It's talking about merely not picturing the counterpoint, explaining the ground, but getting them access to infinite possible policy definition plus the ones in the app, which means that's literally possible to respond. You say there's some counterpoint skew, mutual exclusivity, but no, that does not matter because at the point where you're defending as net beneficial and other competitive reasons, that's the reason you drop me. Also, go to the arguments why you always prefer this interpretation because it's temporary power. You said you don't look to temporary power just because it's more scrutinized for more speeches, but you said decide more for the round, but that's not does not matter because it's scrutinized for more speech in this round. Also, at the point where you look to quantity of abuse, if I put anything against Judicial, it's a reason to reject it because you're not doing enough work on my shelf. So that's full interpretation and crossed by the voter. Cool. So now go to the reasonability part line. I would say there's a competing interpretation on my show, but reasonably on your show. There was a bunch of reasons why competing interpretation does not make sense on T. You dropped them all. The second argument, there's a lot of arguments over at the bottom of the resolution inherently vague. You have to have worse of resolution real words. So I know your interpreter can choose. You try to respond to these after your speech on, but you completely concede them. The third argument is like every T against the next. So competing interpretation is T against the men. It's impossible because I'm quote advantage. Also, negative to choose accuracy and you want to see. Now go to the F substance. Sorry. Using the IPV advantage sharps at all evidence talks about specifically that we ban for those people with hangers. He has no substance app, so that's clear that the IPV advantage is always going to come first. Also, weighing between why the IPV advantage is always going to be for your cards. First of all, the IPV advantage is tangible policy app. There's no literal specific reason why the app is going to be erased. There's no blatant reason why the app is erased. That's going to be erased or rejected. Also, you can see reflective equilibrium. You don't give one counter examples in the framework. Do not want to try to classify the reasons to the K. That's just a reason why it doesn't make sense. That's not a reason why it's a counter example. If I give one counter example to property rights, that's a reason why the whole entirety of the counterplan solves. So go to the counterplan. First of all, it doesn't make sense. It's a counterexample to property rights. For example, we both had property that we were sharing. For example, a house. We don't know whose property right it is, so it doesn't make sense that property rights makes sense. Also, at the point where you're defending property rights, you defend a deontological principle. There are tons of people who've heard deontology be like Connor were clearly racist, which is the reason why you're probably being more on that side than me, which is the reason why T and Carr wouldn't say that. Now go to the Utah. The problem with the Utah is not there's no link to the K. You just give an argument on the answer card. Why we don't look at things intrinsically. But not a reason why it's inherently oppressive. The TN card says people say racial slurs are bad things around. That's a reason to reject them. But that is not what I'm doing. There's no point of race. He didn't point out a single part of the one I see that was racist. There's really unreasonable bias. Also, the common competition doesn't make sense because the view of actions is intrinsically bad, which means that you should reject that. But now go to his shell. Okay. Go to the voter. Kick the other reasonability voter. Value theory via reasonability of the right line of in-round structural abuse. This means we evaluate links of fairness based on whether there's an imbalance in number of burns or layers in the round, which means it has to win. If the negative ability to layer the able horizontally vertical as well as adapt to AC means we always have an advantage in each individual structural layer. Disregard absence of abuse because minimally a substantive advantage. Also, you can see the argument that was clearly made in the one I say if I win the bright line of reasonability, that's an independent reason to vote for me on an RVI, which means if I prove that he's not being reasonable, that's a reason to give an RVI. Go to the shell. First of all, the shell is not going to be for structural abuse. For example, just the reason why you cannot engage in the app in the first place. Also, you're not doing enough work on my definition. You say it is not part of something definition, but that does not matter because it's talking about in resolution. Yes, it's not in context of resolution geographically, but that means it's still part of the resolution. It means my counter interpretation is going to be clearly outweighing. Also, your entire standard is like your standard being such as the topic of your chart does not make any sense as a ball card because at the point where it's in the counter solve, with the parts in the literature, which means you still have terms. For example, I said you can defend prohibition as a whole, which would solve all these standards in the shell, which is the reason to reject that.
Alright, 50 seconds of prep starting now. Wait, so reasonable gives you an RBI?
Yeah, that was
Why?
in the 1AC.
Okay, where?
It was conceded. It was the second point under the visibility bright line. Yeah.
Oh, give me an RBI independently on reasonability if
Yeah.
I'm being reasonable. Okay, and the bright line is in-round structural abuse?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the definition of that?
Structural abuse is how many layers you have to jump through to win the round. Subset abuse is like it's hard to answer these
Okay,
arguments.
yeah, sure.
And like ground, for example, would just be.
Yeah, let's talk about your argument for. Okay, so this is a new bright line, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the counterplan. You cross by the voter. The no counterplan shell. You cross by the voter, right?
Mhm.
Right. You don't read new like drop the debater arguments or anything like that.
I said well.
Yeah, you
so
said cross by the voter.
so
right?
my point was I said competing interpretations on my shell,
I know, but
reasonability on your shell.
Okay. All right. So the order's gonna be. The overview how the round breaks down. I guess you could flow this on top of T because that's where I'm gonna start. So then after that, we're gonna go to. So overview on T, and then AC underview, and then if we have time, the K. So basically T, AC underview, K if there's time. Okay.
Okay.
Let me know when everybody's ready.
You don't need to stand.
No, it's kind of tall for me anyways. Alright, everybody's good?
Yeah.
This round breaks down very simply. All the drop the debater arguments were specific to topicality. He can't just cross-apply those. Worst case scenario, the counterplan goes away and I went on to K anyways on substance. Furthermore, the reasonably bright line is new, so you get new answers to reasonability entirely. It's basically an entirely new argument. All of his arguments were justified prior in the context of his prior bright line, which he realized was a bad one. So I'm going to be waiting on topicality anyways, though, and it outweighs his shell, even if you think his shell applies. So let's start on T. Extending interpretation that Google defines bad is legally prohibited, and the problem with his definition of in is that, first of all, his definition of in is not competitive with my interpretation, which is a definition of bad, and secondly, his definition of in does not have any reason to prefer. He just reads the definition and says that you should temporally prefer, but I actually have theoretical reason to prefer mine. Let's go to the T standards, which basically concedes. He concedes a violation, obviously, the AC plan text and cross-case clarification. Let's go to the standards. Extend the first argument, which is ground. The specification explodes the topic. There's functionally infinite combinations of places of handguns. This is going to be structural abuse because there's an infinite number of different plans you can read. There's no way for me to jump through all those hoops and do the preparation for all these infinite things pre-round in the first place. That is the type of structural abuse. Furthermore, it is still structural abuse because I lose access to constitutionality entities and DAs. I lose access to generic layers that I would have prior in the past had access to, but I do not have access to anymore. This is also going to be a form of structural abuse. And lastly, you can extend the last argument to the ground standard, which is that you can defend trivially true affirmatives. If you defend a trivially true affirmative such as banning handguns for like serial killers, there's no way for me to contest substance. The only place I can go is like SCEP or something like that, which is structural abuse because I cannot contest the AC layer. So all these are proving that I'm meeting the right line of structural abuse. You should strongly err my way because of the fact that he introduced this new right line in the 1AR, so I only have one chance to prove that I'm meeting the right line of structural abuse in the first place. So this is going to be proving it. But now let's go to textuality. Even if structural abuse applies, structural abuse does not apply to textuality. So because textuality is a question of jurisdiction, it links with separate voter. Extend to block 15, which means that specification is not going to be linking back into this in the first place because the jurisdiction to pre-file a reason to reject the affirmative. You cannot specify because private ownership is unmodified in the first place. And extend that even if the case is about microbiology, it's educational, or even if it's fair, that's not a reason we should look to it. All of his reasonability arguments are under fairness, but the jurisdiction impact is going to be independent of reasonability. You cannot just use reasonability on jurisdiction because the jurisdiction is not a question of skews. Jurisdiction is a question of whether or not we can literally vote for you. It's a prima facie question. Outweighs all our standards, also outweighs the counterplan shell in the first place. He has completely conceded the impact weighing off jurisdiction. I'm clearly winning the topicality debate. Now let's go to the voting, the voters. Extend the fairness voter, obviously. We both can agree to that. Go to competing interpretations. He says that he's going to be having a new bright line. So extend the second argument. There's reasonability is arbitrary and divisive intervention. The fact that he goes for a new bright line proves this. You have multiple different types of interpretations of reasonability, so there's no way for you to objectively determine the winner of that theory debate in the first place. Furthermore, his bright line of in-round competitive structural abuse is really bad because, first of all, not only is it not explainable in the speech, but it's also clearly subject to interpretation of what is structural abuse in the first place. What is a structure? What is a different layer? Are two different disads on different layers? This is completely vague about interpretation, so we should look at competing interpretations. And so now let's go to you can see drop debater on topicality specifically. My arguments are specifically about how you will have no more advocacy and how this shell specifically needs drop debater, so he cannot get that on his shell. And nor as a topicality is illogical to vote for you just because you know what the resolution means. That's your job. He says he gets an RBI on reasonability, but the problem is that he cannot just concede my no RBI argument and his you just go for a separate RBI argument. So my RBI or no RBI argument is going to be precluded because it's a question of whether or not we should look to his burden in the first place. His prior question of what it means to affirm negate. So that's the reason why my no RBI argument outweighs his RBI argument. But let's go on his. Let's go to the wherever he extended he gets the RBI on the AC underview. Because the fact that he reads a new bright line is basically an entirely separate argument here. For example, if you were to read like one type of consequentialism in the AC and then the 1AR switch to a different type of consequentialism, you should probably grant me new answers to the framework because the framework is completely different. I should be expected to just stick to my original answers first. So let's get some new answers to reasonability. He says the computing interpretation can be abused. However, my answers in the last speech actually probably take this out pretty well. Firstly, because of the fact that you can have epistemic modesty. If a shell has very little to no offense, then you can just go back to substance anyways. Secondly, the resolution does not have infinite burdens. There's not infinite number of interpretations. There's a finite number of interpretations that you can prep out. And furthermore, I disclose the interpretation on the wiki, which means it's pretty reasonable for you to abide by in the first place. Cross-apply this argument to his reasonability arguments. But then on the argument that you should get on RBI, I'll have new answers to this argument specifically, even though I don't do new answers to reasonability. Firstly, you should not give an RBI on reasonability because of the fact that reasonability is a question of what is reasonable. But you should not win for being reasonable. It is basically the same argument as you should not win for being fair. But this is not a reason that you should reject me outright. Secondly, his argument doesn't apply because of the fact that he says that we should have in-round structural abuse. However, the problem is me reading a bad theory argument is not structural abuse against him, so it doesn't apply under his own right line of reasonability to give him an RBI on this issue. So now let's go to his theory shell. He's predictability argument, but the problem is that it doesn't matter if it's unpredictable. The permutation solves this entirely. If your affirmative is actually going to be solved for the issue, then you just make the perm and takes out non-competitive counterplan. Then you go for the ground argument. However, the problem is that the ground argument is bigger issue here is that he has conceded the competition argument, which says that the second competition argument, which explains that it's mutually exclusive. So I meet this interpretation anyways. You cannot vote on it because he has conceded the argument that legal is going to be legally superfluous, which means that policymakers are going to vote for it. I meet his interpretation there. Now let's go back to substance. Okay. So on substance, he is going to be losing to the critique argument because he's not going to have access to any offense because if the link if all I have to do is win the link, which means that you have no risk of offense for the affirm because all of his offense is predicated on consequentialism being a good thing and you being able to look to something like maximizing some sort of minimizing some sort of harm in the first place. So if I prove that there's no link, if I prove there's a link to the critique, then that's the reason that you reject this framing in the round and you presume that because you concede the argument that resolved means practically defined, determined to do something. That was in the top quality voter, which means that you're going to be presuming that there's a substantive textual reason to presume that over his theoretical arguments. So let's go to link. He says it's very unreasonable because T-Hen's going to be talking about oppressive discourse. However, you're responding to the wrong role of Alcar. T-Hen talks about oppressive arguments and arguments with oppressive conclusions, so it still applies here. He says he doesn't have racial slurs. However, he does not give a reason why racial slurs is a unique right line. The T-Hen argument makes very clear that these arguments make individual people uncomfortable in the first place. Furthermore, you don't have any offense on this there. You at best have been core defense. So I have the only person with the risk of link. So extend and scope, which explains that consequentialism is always going to be permissible, impossible to justify any type of atrocity. And so this is the reason why we should reject the affirming the round and worst presumed neg. Okay, so how the round makes that reasonable. He can't win on the theory debate because I meet his shell and his theory is not drop debater. T is a clear place to vote. He doesn't get an RBI, so you can also vote on the K.
I had 115. Okay, there was one I made argument on my show. What was it?
In the counterplan, I have two reasons for competition. One is net benefits. The second argument for competition.
So you can't. Okay, that's fine.
No,
I understand. So I want to go to the arguments against reasonability. You didn't make arguments against the new bright line. You made arguments about the RBI, right? About why you can't get the RBI. You made arguments why you meet the bright line, but not against the bright line. I want to know the arguments against the
why
RBI.
You get the RBI.
Yeah.
Okay. The first argument is that it's basically the same argument as no fairness for no RBI. No fairness on no RBI under fairness.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that one.
Okay. Then the second argument is that your argument is that under reasonability we should drop someone if they violate some threshold of structural abuse. But me reading a wrong theory argument is not structurally abusive. So it doesn't meet your own reasonability threshold.
But that's the same argument as above.
That is not the same argument as above. The above argument is that you should not win just for being reasonable. Being reasonable is your higher burden.
Yeah. Okay. Were those the only two arguments?
Yes. Okay. And then there's arguments against reasonability itself.
Okay. Those were extended out of the voter, right?
They're extended out of the voter, but they're a lot on the AC. I disclose the interp, so it's not binary and things like that.
Okay.
Do you want me to go through all of them?
No. Okay, cool. It's going to be starting on the reasonability arguments, and then it's going to go to the mutual exclusivity shell.
Reasonability and then mutual exclusivity.
Yep. Okay. Everyone good?
Yeah.
Stand up.
Reasonability and mutual exclusivity.
Ready?
Yeah, good.
Wesley, I'll concede that you get new responses to why the reasonability bright line does not make sense, but you don't make any specific structural abuse. You read generic reasonability arguments, but you cannot make new arguments against the reason why I get an RPI on reasonability, because that was in the 1AC and it goes completely conceded except in the 1AR. You cannot make two in a response. It's a reason to reject every single argument. It's a reason to give me an RBI independently on these arguments. But go to the reasons why it doesn't make sense, just in case you don't buy that. The first argument is that non-unfair, just because you're being unfair doesn't mean I'm being unfair, but the argument is a theoretical abuse claim, just like the same claim about why theoretical reason for a presumption goes first, because it's literally possible in the 1ER to win the debate without you giving me an RBI. It's not about logically, it doesn't make sense. The second argument is that you violate the threshold because I don't mean the structural abuse just by proving it's structural abuse. Yes, but at the point where I'm winning the reasonability debate, you treat it no differently. The argument, literally in the argument takes out your argument, saying you'll treat it any differently. It's the same claim that's made about all the same reason, which means you're giving me the RBI, and that means it's game over. Let's go to the reason why I say it's not structurally abusive. Every single reason why you said you were not structurally abusive is the reason why you were literally this is structurally abusive. Is the reason why it's substance abuse. For example, you said it excludes certain counterplans, and there's an infinite number of plans to answer. Also, you said it's not competitive. Also, you make a bunch of arguments why it's not a topic literature. These are all arguments why it's hard to answer the app because there's not enough ground for him. That's not enough. Let's not talk about the number of hoops to jump through to win this round, right? Maybe a good strategy would have been for Wesley to apply the reasonability strategy or try to win it on my shell, but no, you did not go for that. At the point where he's not proving structural abuse on his shell, that is game over. You give me an RBI on that. The difference between structural and substantive abuse. Structural abuse is how many hoops I have to jump through to win the round. For example, if there were 5 nibs, I have to win every single nib and then win offense to win that round. Substantive abuse says that this argument is hard to answer. That's all your arguments are saying, which means you can give me an RBI right there. It is game over. But let's go to his reasons why we look to reasonability as a whole. Once again, you just extend the reasoning. Such, for example, as this goes on the edge, this goes on the wiki, but that does not matter at the point where it's logically incoherent to look to competing interpretations on topicality. That was extended from the 1AC, which means it's game over there. Now go to the show. You are now responding to the shell wall. If you make this one argument that it's now dropped the bait, you can't cross by, but your third argument is talking about this shell needs to drop the bait reason. We're defining the app, the whole means no punishment. But these are just generic reasons why topicality apply. But yes, the same abuse claim could be made here for me. You're making this, for example, you said you get a new response. I also get a new response to this because you were cross-buying a new voter. For example, these make the same abuse claim as my arguments would. You don't give any reasons why my shell should be dropped the arg. So we have to assume it's drop the bait. For example, it wouldn't make sense if you were having mutual associated counterplan just to drop that counter, especially because you kick it. So go to the offense there. Obviously, there's a ground destruction here because you, at the point where you're defending any mutual exclusivity problem, you made one meat argument that you're defending mutual exclusivity and net beneficial counterparts, but that does not make any sense because my interpretation said you can only defend mutual exclusivity, meaning if you defend as mutual exclusive and net beneficial, that means it's game over because you are defending both. You concede the ground claim, that means it's game over. I'm the only one doing weighing. You can extend the argument that comes temporarily prior, it's scrutinized by more speeches, which means you always look to AC theory over theory in later speeches. Good round.
Good round.
Can I see the 1AC underview text, specifically the section that says that the app gives RBIs and reasonability and the claim about mutually exclusive counterplans? Can I also see the TN evidence, mostly for my curiosity?
Okay.
So the RVI argument and then the spike about
yeah, you can just give me the underview. Actually, Wesley, can I also see T?
Yeah, just the whole flow, or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. The clicker is broken, so if you have to click by like tapping the trackpad. Or you can just use the mouse, the arrows. Yeah. So first is T hand and then it's T.
Got it, thanks. Got it, can you just hit it?
see the F.
Quoza, like this round's version, but so this is like it's pretty much everything this round. There might be a few arguments I didn't read though. Is that
Yeah,
fine?
that's fine.
Okay.
As long as everything.
Everything I did read is in there.
Okay. Like the underview.
Yeah, everything in the interview I've read. Well, everything that I read in the interview is there.
Yeah, except I understand.
Cool.
Okay, you can have this back. Picked up.
Oh, sorry. But interesting feature. So decision is a 2-0 for the negative. I can start. We're switching things up. I thought my decision was fairly simple. I told you I would have a higher standard for evaluating theory. The AF theory is like on all counts fairly ridiculous. So this RBI, I read the AF. The AF says that I get the RBI if I'm being reasonable, not if I win reasonability. I think that distinction is fairly important. I don't think you're winning that your definition is reasonable at any point in this debate. And even before I read that definition, I was having a hard time justifying why you were winning your standard of reasonability, because I agree Wesley doesn't really make many arguments against this new idea of reasonability, but there are some arguments that are cross-applied from the competing interms flow, and there are reasons competing interms are better, but there's no analysis in the 2AR as to why your version is better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other theory shell is a little ridiculous to me on many occasions. One is that the interp in the AF says that they cannot just be net benefits, that they must be mutually exclusive. And the idea for a counterplan to be only mutually exclusive and not net beneficial makes no sense to me, because that means that there's no benefit to the counterplan over the affirmative.
Oh shit, I should have pointed that out.
So, just gonna, I just don't, I'm not gonna vote on that.
Fair enough. Okay, so this debate was slightly messy.
Can I quickly? The TN card is not what you want there. The TN card is talking about like making debate unsafe and making people feel unsafe. I disagree with the position that you're reading, but if you want to read this, just change the TN card,
Okay.
change it into like an argument about like judges as educators or things like that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so this debate's sort of a mess. I like a good theory debate, and I would have appreciated more standards level debate on the T proper and on the AF underview. I mean, the interp in the underview is laughable, and so I think the neg does a really poor job. You just treat it as like some other theory argument. You're just like, counterplans that are beneficial are really important to engage the AF. They're really stock and intuitive. And I'm just like, why don't you just take a step back and just be like, every single counterplan competes on net benefits.
Yeah.
This is good. Advantage counterplans have been read through the history of debate for decades. This is ludicrous. And like, ask them a CX question like, well, are you serious? Be like, what example of a counterplan do you think meets this interp? It seems like you don't really know till the 2NR, or well, actually till the 2AR, that he says only mutually exclusive. I think what you interpreted the shell to mean is just can't be only competitive on net benefits.
That's
Your counterplan was only.
But even then,
there was like an extrapolation, but it was like, what was the extrapolation?
Oh, it was like it would be legally superfluous to pass
Yeah.
two
that-
policies. No,
Yeah,
that was a silly
I think
argument.
I think it's a fine argument.
Yeah, like given. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think it's fine to make that the redundancy competition argument. I mean, it's bad, but it's fine. But I also don't think it's a mutual exclusivity argument. I mean, my understanding of counterplan competition theory is that that's a separate category of competition altogether. That's largely outdated. But that's kind of a different theoretical question.
What was the decision here?
A 2-0 for the neg from Millburn.
Okay.
All right. So those are my thoughts generally on the debate. Let me tell you why I voted neg. I think that the neg wins this jurisdiction independent voters stuff. I think the AF wins that terrible theory argument because you just don't have offense in the 2NR, and you just say perms check, which isn't true if your counterplan's net beneficial. I don't understand that argument. That's fairly poor defense. And then you say I meet, which I think is a new argument that should have been in the 1NC since the interp was in the 1AC. Maybe since there's a violation new in the 1AR, you should get 2NR I meet arguments. I don't know. But I don't think the I meet is correct given the way the 2AR explains the interp and how I have it flowed in the 1AC. So you lose the AF shell, but you win the neg shell. I think the 2NR wins jurisdiction and says this outweighs because it's a conceded impact framing. Whereas the only AF weighing argument is on the standards level, linking to fairness. So Paul, you have this like temporally prior argument, which is also like not very good, and that's why I'm saying engage more in what the actual abuse story is, rather than just like all. I mean, it's we can all agree that it's ludicrous to say that one side's abuse always outweighs another, and I mean you should be doing more work on this starting in the 1NC.
I just have a few more questions about the shell. Cause I don't really know like counterplan theory that well. Wait, so what does this interpretation say? It says must be
Only mutually exclusive, not competitive on that benefit. So you have to defend a counterplan that like could not conceivably pass in a world where the plan exists and is not better than the AF to do. So I mean it's essentially no counterplans, which is how you should debate it. Yeah, so that's there's part of me that wants to just be like the neg T offense is just so much better and do the kind of thing that Pranav did, where it says like this AF shell is just terrible. But I think given this pretty much conceded AF weighing argument about temporally prior, I have to grant that the AF has better fairness offense than you do. The only thing I have from you in the 2NR is like I have more theoretical offense, even though he says temporally prior. That doesn't really respond to the weighing argument. So I think so I don't have to look at the reasonability flow since I think the neg is winning T outside of reasonability. I buy this 2NR argument that's like jurisdiction doesn't like reasonability doesn't apply to jurisdiction arguments. But I also think Paul that you dropped some stuff in the 2AR on the reasonability debate. He applies his generic arguments about reasonability being arbitrary and self-serving to your new bright line specifically. He says that how you define structural abuse is arbitrary, and the fact that you had two bright lines in this debate also proves that we don't know what's reasonable. And I think those arguments are decent and specific to what you've said. So I think the neg probably is also winning competing interps. Other comments about this debate. I think the 1NC strategy is kind of strange. I'm down for counterplans with deont net benefits. I think it's fun, and I've seen it done really well. I don't think this is a good instance, namely for the one cross-ex question that he asked, which is like, so how does it not violate people's freedom to force them into rehab?
Yeah.
And any explanation that you give for why they should have, like, their mental health should be evaluated, etc., is also probably a reason they shouldn't have guns, or taking away guns would lead them to be healthier, given that they lead to suicide and those types of things. So I don't think it applies really well to this AF. I think the 1NC missed some opportunities to do good framework debating. Like, you just drop line by line AF framework. Granted, you don't have a ton of time, so maybe what you do is just read your deont NC, don't read the counterplan, don't deal with the counterplan theory in the AF at all, so you don't give them a voter there, and then just do a framework debate. Second big major error I thought was made by the AF in cross-ex and in the 1AR. Didn't he say in cross-ex that the K comes first?
No.
Yeah.
No. He asked me,
you said
what do I
fairness
want? I
first?
said the K comes first, and he's like, oh, fairness first then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, fair enough. I still think though you missed a big opportunity on the K, because the true response is that you don't defend consequentialism, you defend a rule-based theory that would say genocide is bad. I mean, why is that not the first cross-ex question? It's just like, I don't say any consequence could be justified.
Well, I saw
I explicitly defend RE, which says that these unintuitive harms would be excluded by my framework.
So it seemed like the only card that interacted with, like, could interact at all would be the first card, the Anscombe card, because it talks about how you can, like, intrinsically value something intrinsically. So that's
your
what
framework does do that, because you defend.
Yeah, no, he said you can't do that. So that's why I was
I'm saying your framework does not do that, because your framework doesn't justify that any consequence can justify the breaking of a rule. You explicitly say there are rules. Like, I mean, I just don't think there's. I mean, we can get into like how you categorize normative theories, but I think a lot of moral philosophers would say that rule consequentialism is much more like deontology.
Yeah, there's a lot of intuitive answers. Yeah.
I just have one last question.
Yep.
Do you think the 2NR is right that the drop debater standards only apply to locality?
Yeah, so I thought about this a little bit. The 1AC fairness voter is a voter. It says fairness is a voter. So I think I think he's already said that fairness is a voter. I don't think the 1NC was the first one to initiate that.
Yeah.
If that weren't in the AF, then yeah, totally. T is a voter and not theory. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Good debate, y'all. Good luck.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
It's
What is it? What is a camera?
Oh, sorry.